Strive and Thrive is a collection of discussions featuring guests from various fields, focused on guiding entrepreneurs in creating businesses that excel in every aspect: people, planet, and profit. Throughout the series, you can join us, Ramesh and Mike, as we explore relevant topics with our guests which can help businesses thrive.
Ramesh and I met while I was supporting a client transforming their business, and I needed finance director support and reached out to him and his team. Since then, we've become good friends who share a passion for business and entrepreneurship. If you like today's discussion, then you want to subscribe to our YouTube and Spotify channels.
Hi there, welcome to today's discussion featuring the one and only Mike Oliver, our co-host and also the founder of Easel. Today we're diving into the world of people, entrepreneurship and innovation. So Mike and I have been on this Strive and Thrive adventure now for around 6 months, I guess, Mike, yeah?
Yeah.
And I think it's time for us to get to know Mike a little better. We're going to explore his thoughts on what should be a very relevant topic: people and the entrepreneurship journey. So to kick off, firstly, Mike, how are you? You doing okay?
Yeah, very good, thank you. I'm not sure whether I'm looking forward to this or not, Ramesh. It's always good asking the questions, not being the interviewer, I think.
I'll be kind. Okay, so listen, to start off with, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, really good, thanks. So I set up Easel during COVID, actually. So it would have been around 2021, I think. So for me, that was when I officially thought of myself as setting up a business and going on the entrepreneurial journey myself. And it's only over the last couple of years I've kind of realized that's not really how I perceive entrepreneurism anymore and the entrepreneurial role. And I think back across my career, and it's been involved in government work, startup work, technology work, large organizations. And I think I've had lots and lots of entrepreneurial experiences. And I think that has framed me having a different perspective on what entrepreneurialism is and the journey that people go on as part of that.
Yeah, I think something that's always struck me about, I suppose, the area that you cover and your particular journey is the different kinds of organizations that you're dealing with, right? I mean, so ultimately it's government organizations, it's startups, it's multinationals, so you cover a wide range. And I think that probably gives you a really interesting perspective on the different dynamics at play. One thing that you talk about when we're kind of having our kind of standard chats outside of the episode is the journey. So you've had an interesting journey. Why do you call it a journey?
It's a good one, right? I think that we used for this podcast the word entrepreneurial journey, and I think for me that's the word I like to coin at the moment. But I think a lot of people call it overlaps with words like continuous improvement, and the big one in corporate and government space is innovation, and people trying to explore new ideas. And I think when you touch on these areas, people get involved in what the technology solutions are. We had John and Matt on recently, and they both talk about how AI is the future and what that looks like. It's all technology. And my experience, having worked now in large corporate, small organizations, government, is there's a common thread between what is a successful project and what is one that gets blocked and challenged and can't get to market. And that is, it's the person and the people and the team that are on it. And what you realize is it's their journey of achieving their outcome on that singular mission that is probably the most important factor in any entrepreneur's journey. And I class entrepreneurship in that context as those individuals who are trying to work within government, trying to push technology into policing or into healthcare, or individuals who are starting up like you and I, our own businesses in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Okay. So So look, I've got another question I want to ask you based on that,
Sure.
but let's take a step back. I think to give a bit more context to this, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you help organisations? I think that's really important to
Really good.
understand the context of this.
Yeah, really good. And it's why you gave the insight on all the variable sectors that we work across. And actually, we can be very sector agnostic in terms of what we do, because what we are doing as a team is we are working in with individuals or groups of people in teams who are looking to convert something new and take it in a new direction. And that can be ranging from a technology solution, a business change solution, an organizational redesign. And what we bring to bear are the tools, the capabilities, and the experience as a team to help that cohort of people move and move successfully on a journey and really kind of find out how to test their ideas, how to bring their ideas to life, how to realize them in the market, and to really think about why they're doing what they're doing, but also to do it in a very safe and sort of context safe environment.
Okay, what do you mean by context safe environment there?
So a lot of people believe that, or I see a lot of practice where people have an idea. And I think this touches on sort of a big topic in terms of innovation. People think, and entrepreneurship, people think if you haven't got an idea, you can't move. And actually, for me, the idea is just part of the start of a journey, or it's part of the journey. There's other things like what is the problem? What is the solution? What's the market? What things do you need to test? And I've spoke to a number of investors, and what they are most interested in is, are you as a team able to test the market? Are you as a team in a position to collectively understand what is going on beyond your business or your organizational area and really be able to achieve the outcomes that you're looking to do?
Okay. So really, to boil that down, you're kind of in the innovation transformation space and working with teams in various organizations to enable those changes to happen. So obviously, this is all about the importance of people in your experience. So, and I suppose the question that comes to mind to me here is, with innovation, how do you balance off the importance of, there's people, there's technology, there's the idea. How do you balance all of those off in terms of importance?
So it's good. About 15 years ago, I did some work with Cambridge University, and we looked at developing methodologies for evaluating projects, innovation projects, and how successful they are, and sort of trying to drive a kind of investment strategy. And it's built off complexity theory, really trying to understand, that's the background to it. But what I've found with it, and we've since then evolved the methodology into our own, is a methodology called Head Starts. What we do is we help teams and organizations. We'll sit down with them, work with them collaboratively online, and we will go, where are you? What is the project? What are your gaps? What do you need to do? What are the easy next steps and tests that you can put out there that will allow you to move forward successfully? And I think what we have, so that's what we kind of do as an offer. And what that enables the individuals to do is we bring at it in a holistic way. Three main areas we focus on. What is the business? Is there a viable business there? And I'll come back to that in a second. Technology or solution, is that viable? Can you build it? And is it realistic linked to the business case? Finally, is there a customer? Is there a user and a customer need? And if you can start to map those three, what you're able to help those people do is go, actually, we're not sure about some of this, and we need to now go and test the viability in those three core areas. The reason that's worked so well in a lot of projects that I've worked on is many of them are coming from one of the anchors. Many of them come from, I've got money, I need to roll out AI, which is interesting. Many others come, there's a customer problem, they really need this solution, what next? They're even ready to pay. Or others come from it from a technology push angle. I've got a new AI toolkit, right, let me go and sell it. And what we've been trying to do is work with those individuals and teams to navigate that triumvirate. And in doing so, it helps them really articulate the early benefits. And I can give you a couple of examples. I was asked to do a really interesting project around counter drone solutions. Big topic at the moment, particularly with Ukraine. And we ran a project for about 3 months, funded with a customer, to kind of define what that solution would look like. And we saw all the technology, all the stuff that's still out there today, to be honest. But I said, who's buying this stuff? Who's interested? And so we went and spoke to Heathrow. We went and spoke to defence sites. We spoke to airline companies. We spoke to NATs. We really kind of opened up who the customers are. And what we were able to quickly realize in that context is that these people aren't paying for these solutions, or they weren't at the time. They are now. But at the time, and our feedback at the end of that was, if you continue to evaluate solely the technology solutions, you've got to make sure that the market is ready for your solution. Otherwise, you're throwing out a solution into a market where there's no buyer.
Yeah.
And
I totally get the importance of that. It's like the old Sinclair C5. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I always wanted one.
Yeah, I think we're betraying our age here, but
yeah, I don't remember actually.
Yeah, well, just to explain that, back in, gosh, when was it? The early 80s, I'm thinking. Yeah. Is it Sir Clive Sinclair, who is a renowned inventor, entrepreneur, I guess. He invented a 3-wheel electric, I believe, kind of mode of transport, which was a single person mode of transport, where you're essentially, it was very low to the ground. You're almost like lying down, weren't you? And
it's kind like of the original version of the e-scooters that everyone has these days.
Yeah, but it was in a more reclined position and very, as I said, very low. And there was a lot of fanfare about it, and it was electric, I believe. So it was in many ways it was ahead of its time. It looked pretty quirky. It looked interesting, and there was a lot of fanfare, but it didn't work. No one bought it. No one really wanted that kind of transport at that point in time. And I think that's a classic kind of business school example, isn't it, of someone who went out and designed a product, but without actually really testing whether that was what the market needed at that point. So hopefully that's a kind of illustrator of what you're saying there.
Yeah, it's a good example, and you see it a lot. A lot of people identify a problem that's genuinely real, right, and they want to address it, but they very quickly develop a solution. And I've seen many interesting case studies of what happens when that happens. When you're trying to push a solution into the market, or push a solution into a large corporate, or push a solution into government, that's really difficult, because you've got that challenge of, will those people buy it? What's the adoption challenge? What's the cost price? How can you really deliver it? It sounds simple to say you need a solution, but the context in which it's landing is much more difficult. And really helping those individuals and teams go on that journey in a small way, small iterative way. Keep learning, find out what's going on, keep learning is really important. I did my biggest lesson learned, I think, was when I was doing a project myself, and we got amazing feedback from end users, told us exactly what we needed. And in 3 months, we built a proof of concept in good old lean startup methodology. And so we went on to the MVP version, and we kicked it into the market in 3 months across Europe, very fast. Hit the market, and I'll be honest, didn't hit product market fit.
Right.
We didn't get the traction we expected. And what we realized is the market had evolved in that time. We'd stopped listening. We'd started focusing on our idea. And we'd stuck to the swim lane of our idea without kind of continually getting that market noise, that market feedback, continually iterating in that example into the solution. And I'd say the other examples I've worked, and I can talk about government quite a bit, is I've done a lot of research across government in terms of where innovation and entrepreneurship and development of new ideas. And I've had the fortunate opportunity to interview lots of people who've successfully rolled out really novel solutions in interesting domains, and people who failed. And it's never the technology that's the problem. It's actually very much an organizational challenge. And one of the biggest challenges that all those individuals have had, it's about them. They have had to go on quite a challenging journey. They've often had to convince multiple stakeholders of the business justification and the reason for doing it and the process. They've then had to engage with very complicated end users to ensure that it fits the solution, meets the needs. And the bit I think, and the reason I therefore keep talking about journey, entrepreneurship, is people need that kind of mental resilience to be able to navigate what is quite a complicated exploitation route for technology and new ideas and business. But, and I think this is one of the most important things I try to tell everybody, and it's kind of one of the lessons I would love to come out of this, is that that doesn't mean you don't wait too long and you don't start when you've come up with the perfect answer. I think my lesson for myself and for everyone is to sort of take small iterations, small learning, keep going, keep driving. You'll find a problem, it might not work, you'll kill it, or you keep moving and you'll keep learning on the journey. And that for me is where I've seen the most successful projects come to quite impressive outcomes.
Okay, great. So you've talked about resilience, and that's a required trait in individuals. We'll come back to that. That's an interesting point I'd like to explore. But you've kind of touched on your career there and your experience, and so I guess the question that interests me on your people journey, if you like, is what would you do differently in your career or journey as an entrepreneur? Based on actually hindsight.
I would say I'm going to build off what I've been talking about a little bit. I set up a business when I was in my 20s, and I wanted money, the market, and the solution all in one go. So as you can imagine, no one bought what I didn't know I was selling in a way that I didn't know how to make money from it. And I just sort of froze. And I think it's taken me to being in my 40s to work out that it's okay to set up a business and evolve it and work out what you're doing on that journey. And I think I wish I'd been braver and bolder earlier to take what advice I'm giving to people now. And you're okay. Yes, you need some foundations, and that's a different thing. You do need some starting money. You do need a starting position, but you only need the starting position. You don't need the end solution. I think a lot of people I talk to have really good ideas are waiting for that big funding opportunity. They're waiting for VC funding or someone to support them financially or a salesperson to come on board so that they can springboard their technology that they've built, or someone with a solution and going, where's my technology person who can build it for me? When I find them, I'll go and set up my business. And what I find really interesting is I waited too long, and I could have done what I'm doing earlier, but it was a confidence thing. I thought the vision of an entrepreneur is, we all use, if we think about who's a famous entrepreneur, everyone will say Elon Musk for right or wrong. That's what people have in their head. And I think there's another paradigm of what an entrepreneur is, and it's someone more like yourself who's had quite a big career and then evolves into running your own business. The people we meet on Strive and Thrive, they're not in that kind of same, they're a completely different persona to someone like Musk. It's someone who believes in what they do, cares about what they do, and builds a really strong, robust business around it. And it'd be great if more people did that.
That really resonates, actually, because like as in all things, there's a stereotype, isn't there?
Yes.
And Musk in some ways is almost a caricature of what an entrepreneur is, such as that stereotype, tech focused. And but it really resonates with me because I remember way back in my career when I was at EY, learning my trade as well, firstly as an accountant, training to be an accountant. One of my managers, and obviously, we were supporting lots of businesses in terms of the services we were providing at EY, and we came across lots of business leadership teams, etc. And one of my managers kind of made a comment once, which really stuck with me at the time. And I suppose I completely agreed with it at the time as well, and I didn't challenge it. And he said to me once, and I can't remember the context of the conversation. He said, Ramesh, ultimately, if any of us were entrepreneurs, we would have done it by now.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, he actually said that. And I always remember that comment because, yeah, it was quite impactful. And as I said, completely agreed with it. I was I was at that point in my, probably early to mid 20s, and actually, no, I couldn't now in hindsight, whilst he was a great manager and actually, a good mentor in many ways, I couldn't disagree more based on my experience. I mean, as you said, I started my business just before COVID, so similar time to you actually, and it was a leap of faith, and I think it's different. It's different journeys for different people, isn't it? It sounds very cliched, but the right time for one person is not the right time for another. We're all unique. We've all got unique, very different sets of experiences and expertise. And not, firstly, not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, right? It's definitely a very distinct area of life. I think it's very exciting, dynamic space. I've been amazed at the things I've learned. I've been amazed at how many hurdles I've had to kind of overcome.
and we talk about the
I
emotional journey a lot, don't we, between
yeah,
us? It's the emotional
yeah,
journey of you don't celebrate the highs. I think you said to me the other day, we don't celebrate the highs,
yeah,
but you kind of beat yourself up when it's getting a bit tricky.
100%.
And
Exactly right. Don't get too, yeah, you want to celebrate things and recognize your achievements. I think that is important to do, but at the same time, don't get too high when it's high, don't get too low when it's low, because I think being an entrepreneur, certainly in my experience, and certainly from the many people I've spoken to in this space, whether they be clients or my wider network, is it's a roller coaster. It is, and it's it's an adjustment to move into a world, particularly if, like me, you had a career where you were a full-time employee for many years, or in my case, decades. Um,
was there a tipping point
certainty
for
of
you,
income.
Ramesh? Was there a tipping point for you to suddenly make it happen?
I think. I mean, ultimately, I'm a finance person, right? I've got an accounting background originally, and I kind of progressed my career to kind of finance director or chief financial officer level, and so there's a lot of progression and learning there. But ultimately, finance people are quite risk averse, right? It's a very common trait in people in my space, and I think it's confidence. It's actually, we're also, I mean, certainly from my own perspective, and this is a strange thing to say, but you kind of suppress your creativity, I think, when you are in that world, or you can do. And one of the things I've loved most about becoming an entrepreneur and becoming a founder of a business is actually I'm now tapping into the creativity that I had, when I was younger, that kind of got, I suppose, pushed to the side to an extent. But yeah, I think I think confidence, hanging around entrepreneurs, because I worked in startups as a full-time FD or CFO for many years, and enjoying that experience. It was almost for me like a gradual move towards the end goal, which is now being a founder. Um, as well. Obviously, I still have my finance hat as being, an FD consultant, and running my collective of FDs, which I love doing. But the experience of actually having your own business it's a different experience altogether.
Yeah, I agree, and we're touching on entrepreneurship as a founder here as well as, and some of which I talk a lot about entrepreneurship can be in big businesses as well, and it can be in government organizations for me. These are still people who experience the same kind of pains you and I experience as founders. Yes, I would say there are very big differences. I'd say in a small company, it's cash flow. That's always the kind of late nights, not sleeping problem. But I'll be honest, in big organizations, it's the politics, it's the presentations, it's the people. And I think that for me is you're always navigating those kind of challenges. And there's a question I've just noticed about resilience in the kind of chat actually that's just dropped in. And for me, that's great, right? Is it lonely? It is, but it's how do you get help in that? And some of the work we've been doing in the last month, actually, and I'm going to credit Rose Sharon for this, but we've developed a kind of tool.
Just explain who Rose Sharon is, by the way.
Yeah, Rose Sharon's someone in my team who's come up with coined a really good phrase. We've sort of started to build an innovation tool that's about a tool for building relationships. Who do you need to talk to? Why do you need to talk to them? Lots of founders find mentors, and I think there's something slightly broader than that. But I think a tool for building relationships when you're going on these journeys, so that when you are stuck on cash flow, there's the people who know how to support you on that. There's people who've been through that before. If it's VC investment, you can work with those sorts of people. If it's a technology challenge or a product market fit problem, you've kind of got that network, that cohort of tools to help you keep battling through the challenges you as an individual will find on that journey. And I think that applies in any area. I did some fascinating work on the World Food Programme and saw some amazing entrepreneurs in Bangladesh who were trying to distribute food. And you could see they just needed that reassurance that they're on the right track. And they needed a few tools and capabilities and sort of mentorship and support to keep them on that journey.
Yeah.
Same with you and I, right? I know we have these conversations offline too, and it's the same thing.
100%. 100%. You've just talked about questions from the audience. We've got a couple of good ones. Do you mind if I jump to those? We'll carry on with the discussion afterwards, but it seems a good time to dive into some of these. So first question is, our diverse experience offers valuable insights into entrepreneurship's human-centered approach. How has this perspective shaped your success?
I'm just going to read it again to make sure.
So I think what they're saying is, have your diverse experiences kind of empowered you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it has, and I think I'm going to talk about mine, and then I'll touch on our, because that's in the question. I think my ability, the fact that I've had experience across multiple domains and multiple types of organizations helps me understand. So, for example, within government and large corporates, we understand the politics and the requirements and what is needed to enable something to actually happen and change to be realized. I think working in small businesses, it's different, right? But it's still this, you can bring to bear where corporate level experience is needed in small businesses, or maybe when small business type pace and change and evolution and proof of concept development fit in larger organizations. And I think that diversity is great. There's also massive threads of learning across multiple sectors. And I think, I'm lucky in that respect. But I think individuals with diverse experiences can bring to bear more to their learning journey. And I think this comes back to why do you talk about journey, right? It's somebody who's going on an experience, and to know what to bring to bear at what point in time is so important. And you will have rewarding experiences, and you need to piggyback that and double down on it and build on it, like we're doing with Strive and Thrive. Or you will have those points where you go, oh, that's really not worked. What do we do next? How do we learn? And what are the tools we can bring to bear to learn on that?
It's essentially building from the successes and the failures, right? And kind of building that into your next steps. No, I get that. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I would agree with that.
I do think there's some theory around failing, and it's okay for lots of failures. I think in principle, I get the origin of that idea, but this is about your learning. You're doing something to learn, and in doing something to learn, you create new value off the back of it, whatever that looks like.
I've got a client, and he'll know exactly who he is. He he's currently looking to evolve his business and actually start to create new areas to expand into. And that's where the ideas and innovation comes in, which is going to be really interesting. And I'm really excited to be supporting them in that area. But he's decided not to do it. But he was at one point contemplating seriously calling himself the head of failure. So yeah, you've got to do that to kind of, and you've got to be, I suppose, not afraid to fail and get yourself into that.
And be confident enough to try something new, right? That's why that phrase works.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people would stay in their only areas that they're comfortable in. And if we would go back to what Matt's Strive and Thrive discussion was around the complexity in the world and the changing environment, even yesterday, there are announcements every day of new changes.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to adapt to that kind of environment, and that requires the resilience that we talk about, but also the willingness to keep exploring rather than staying sort of static in the areas you're comfortable in.
100%. I think the best entrepreneurs understand that they don't know what they don't know. They're open-minded, and to your point, everything's changing so rapidly. It's just accelerating, isn't it? And that's just going to continue, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good. And I think one of the questions and things I was thinking about for here is, what have I learned on my journey? And I think I've learned that I know less now than I probably did when I started, but I actually understand now what I need to ask and how I need to go about doing that. And I think that frame of mind is interesting, because I think when you're young, I assumed you'd have the answer and you just go for it. Your vision, create a vision, go, go, go. And I think that nicely leads into the next question.
Yeah, it looks like you're looking to understand the environment, understand the organization, etc., before you then take that next step.
Yeah,
which makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a great question here. Does the entrepreneurship journey, Mike, ever get lonely? If yes, why? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, we did touch on this, and I think it absolutely does. And I think that's about working out when you have those moments of psychological loneliness or work challenges, right? And that may create that feeling of loneliness, is how to navigate that and what you need to put in place as an organization. Pretty much every founder who's run a business shortly, not a long one like us, 5 years, 6 years, they've usually got a good cohort of other experienced founders to talk to. But it's to recognize that you are stuck, and it's the ability to navigate and talk to people linked to that, and to get advice when you need it. You were great for me recently. I needed some finance advice, and I thought Ramesh will help. It's brilliant. And I had a technology problem the other month, and I knew who to go to, and it would have been a showstopper, but I was able to have that sensible conversation with the right person. They gave me some ideas, and I was able to navigate through it. I've got experience of helping people do it, but when you're doing it yourself, you need that external stimulus to kind of help you through that process.
It's actually something that I strongly believe exists, and I think actually as a consultant, there's an awful lot you can do to help. So I'm talking about a consultant client relationship here, but in that context, my main contact at my clients, and the same for my other consultants, is often the CEO, the managing director, the founder, or someone else very senior in the leadership team. And it is a lonely place. It's a lonely, even in a multinational corporation, I think leadership can be very lonely, because you have to make tough decisions. There are very few peers for you to kind of bounce ideas off in a safe space and to get advice from. So I think it's really important, firstly, to surround yourself with good people, your network, your friends, to lean on for advice generally or for specific issues. So yeah, Mike, completely support that point.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
why I think entrepreneurship, thinking of as only founders, is dangerous, because I think there's people in large organizations who are going on the same kind of experiences. Maybe the specific problems are different, but I'd say all problems are different to achieving what you're trying to do. But they're having exactly the same experience of loneliness, of challenges, of someone just not agreeing with them, and how do you navigate that or blocking it?
yeah,
And I would
yeah.
say my experience in government is exactly the same as that I'm seeing in people in startups who are trying to get it working.
And that insight for me has kind of informed how we, again, talking from my business, how we try and support our clients. Because as a finance director or chief financial
Yeah,
officer, you're often the right hand of the leadership, right? And I think personally that you can't really add value unless you build that trust, you build that relationship, and a part of that is actually really listening, and providing a little bit of emotional support as well,
yeah,
because it is tough, and being that safe space, and that's really one of the things that we try and do, and I see that you try and do that as well, and ourselves as founders, we need that too. So that is I think it's a key bit of advice for everyone. You're not on your own. When you're going through your journey, find good people. You probably already have them there, but don't be afraid to kind of utilize their support.
yeah. Good.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, some very nice questions here, some good ones. So I find that many founders of startups and scale-ups are deeply invested in their product or service. I think that is definitely something that we've all seen and experienced. It's their vision, it's their baby. While they may have a strong client base and a great offering, they often struggle to let go and delegate. From your experience, Mike, working across different sectors, what strategies have you seen that help founders shift from being heavily involved in execution to building a team they can trust to drive growth? I think that's a great question.
It's $1 million question, right? Because I'd say I think that the truth is you need to understand and I'm going to use some of the terminology that we use, but some of the head starts of the organization. Where is that organization now, and how can you help facilitate that leader into identifying what their role is and what their value is within the organization and what they need to do? And I think it's around enabling them they've got to recognize that they need to step away. And I'd say most of the time, it's very unusual for someone not recognizing it. But if they don't recognize it, that's a different problem. But if they do recognize it, it's how you help them achieve that, and how you build that kind of safe space to build the team around them that can prove that they can take ownership and leadership of certain components of it initially, and that will evolve over time. And I think building up that trust and solution in the fact that there's a need for an ownership. And I've seen it in a couple of organizations where very strong-willed founders have almost suppressed their organization and or owned the value proposition, and the team are going, I just want to break free and take ownership from it. And I've been like, never take ownership. That will not work. You're just creating conflict. The only thing you need to do is build on that and build the trust with the founder to kind of evolve that into a new environment. Because the other thing I often find is the founders as well get stuck because they're often running a new business while owning that delivery, and they kind of get time challenges. So you kind of got to help those people understand that and let the team work around them to fill the gaps. And over time, it will evolve out, but it's a time game. It's a change game. It's not a solution problem.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I mean, I like you. I've seen that scenario many times, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think part of what you do and part of what we do actually in coming at it from different angles is probably explaining to the founder, the entrepreneur, your value to the business is not in doing everything.
Mm.
So for example, from my perspective, why are you doing lots of administration? Why are you, that's not value added work. Your value to the business is driving it forwards with your vision, your ability to build relationships as a founder, to kind of execute your idea,
And
essentially. And I think,
um,
yeah, I agree with you. It's helping business owners take advantage of the team that they have, to empower them, to trust them, and give them responsibility and let them breathe and grow and create that development environment.
uh, it
And
actually nicely touches on our next Drive and Thrive with Kate, who will talk a little bit about
nice
organizational
plug
maturity.
there, Mike. I like
But
it.
that touches on organizational
Yes.
maturity, and Kate will do a really good job of explaining her thinking on that in her book. And I think that touches on some of those areas of how you help
Yeah.
organizations evolve. Um,
Yes.
so
That's right, and yeah, that's our next episode with Kate Mercer. How grown up is your SME? And absolutely right, Mike. Yeah, Kate's going to have some amazing things, we both know, to kind of talk about that area. But I think ultimately, create an environment that empowers, that develops and
mm,
grows people, and not only will you as a founder you know have more time to breathe and think and actually drive the business forwards because you've got the headspace, but you'll have a really, really motivated team,
uh,
and that team will be the existing team, and also bring in the right people as the business grows to support you in other areas as well. I think it's about getting that balance. It's about people, it's about structure, and it's about creating that environment and trust. And that's a leap of faith in some ways, because right, yeah, like you say, founders can often, oh, I do this well, I should keep doing it. No one's going to do it as well as me. But actually, you have to let go of some areas, and often lots of areas, to actually
mm.
keep the business thriving.
I also think the question builds out another interesting perspective. We talked a lot about individual, but we've really nicely touched on team now. And I
Yeah.
think a team can go on an entrepreneurial journey together as well. And I would say some of my best experiences have been when a team's gone on that entrepreneurial journey. I've met some amazing people, multidisciplinary, and we're going on a journey together to try and address a really interesting problem or technology.
Mm.
And I think that it's no different. It's the safety, it's the understanding what to do next. It's it's keep testing, keep building your team as a dynamic. And I think that what we're talking about as individuals is equally applicable in a team context.
Yeah, brilliant observation, Mike. Okay, another question for you.
There's
I'm
loads.
liking throwing these at you, but you seem to be doing quite well. So, if you keep exploring and learning, is there a danger of the business constantly evolving and not establishing its identity, or not being able to cope with constant change? When is enough?
It's a lovely question, right? And this is where Mike's style and Mike's interest is in a new, right, and new and novel and getting new into it. But for me, yes, that withstanding that, there's got to be a core. My expectation is there's a core constant, and and you've still got to have that in place. And I think the bits
How,
I would
how,
try
how would
and
you describe? How do you define a core constant? What do you mean by that?
I would say most businesses, most organizations have a core delivery of some sort of approach, system, methodology, market solution. So think about stuff I'm doing in government at the moment. They already do things as they're doing it now. That is their constant. A startup that's maybe a consultancy that wants to spin into a product space. That's the kind of example that I'm really thinking of. And I'm thinking it's how you help them experiment outside the norm in a really safe way, how you enable that entrepreneurship within your organization, not necessarily on it, within it, to experiment, to see what might work, to build confidence in the new ideas without, as the message pretty much said, derailing the core business. And I have seen both. I have seen founders jump from core business to another core business to a new business, and in doing so, not really embed the structure that is needed in there.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, if that's needed because the market and the evolution, great. That's a decision. That's a vision, mission decision, right? But you've also got to dumb down on the good successes. And I think you picked up on this earlier when you said when you continually learn, you go to a point where you have successes. When you have successes, build on them and build on those successes. It doesn't mean you need to keep navigating all new scenarios. What you need to do is recognize those scenarios and keep pushing out and exploring where you may need to play in a different domain or different products or different value chain or whatever that might look like for you as an organization.
Okay. So can you tell us something that you've learned on your experience today? I'm going to stop using the word journey because I think we've overused it now. But
Yeah,
in
I
your
agree.
experience to date, what have you learned as an entrepreneur that was completely unexpected and surprising?
I'm going to touch on a thread that's important to me, I think, and it may be not answering your question, so you can tell me off after. I've met many people who I think could become, maybe we use the word entrepreneur too much, could go on their own investigation into producing a product, setting up a business, fixing a really difficult problem that's bugging them, and they find themselves trapped. And what have I learned is that there are so many people out there who are like that. And if we can find ways of unlocking that inherent capability in people, we'll see so much systemic change. This kind of view that you're an individual with a problem, but someone over there does it, or you need multi-million-pound investment to do it, stops those kind of problems being fixed.
Mm.
And I think one of the stories I always like to tell is that when I was working in the NHS, I was working sort of helping performance and managing A&E at the time. And I worked with an alcohol liaison nurse. And he came to me one day and said, Mike, I've got a massive problem. We know all the alcoholics that are coming into the hospital. And once they arrive, they get reviewed and whatever's wrong with them, they get cascaded around the hospital to the appropriate area. You know, A&E manage it as they should. He said, what I want to do is pick them up just as they enter A&E. So I can, because I know the problem is alcoholism, not the underlying condition, which then pushes them around the hospital. So they're not being managed as an alcoholic, they're being managed as a diagnosis. So I said, okay, shall we do an experiment? So he and I built an experiment where we built some sort of reporting, some analysis. So as soon as someone he knew presented at A&E, he got a text message. And he then got that text message. And he disappeared. And I was like, I don't know what happened. Anyway, one day, a month later, he came back to me, sat down in my office, shut the door and said, and he burst out crying. And he said, Mike, this has worked. I am having more effect on more people by this simple change. And what that made me realize, and that's the same with all of this, is that you can have, if you work with the right people who are motivated and do small changes, you can have really big impacts. And I think that's a nice example, but I see that a lot at the moment in policing. I see it in the healthcare. I see it in startups. I see it in big companies. There's the ability to help maybe the people who are really able to understand the problem with some simple technology solutions really make a massive difference. And for me, that is entrepreneurialism, in my view.
Yeah.
That is.
I think one of the key messages I'm hearing is observation and understanding. You know,
Yeah.
having a really good look first before you act. You know,
Yeah.
in some cases, or getting that mix right.
Yeah, don't overanalyze is I'd
Yeah.
say, but go and explore and experiment.
Yes, but do it meaningfully. Really observe what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, to get to the solutions. But then, yeah, try different things. That's really good. So, final question, and I think this is a really good one. Is there, in your view, a personality profile that works best for an entrepreneur?
I hope I've kind of answered that, but for me, it's absolutely not. I'd say there's skills that people need to learn, and they can gain them over time, either through doing it or through working with other people or joining networks. But I would say there's an opportunity for people in any demographic group to be able to find their own entrepreneurial way forward, to try things. The ability nowadays to set up part-time businesses on your own is just there with what's available on the internet. And I think for me, nearly anybody can do this, or fixing problems in NGOs or in charities or in government. I think people can do this. It's somehow enabling them to do it that for me is the really important piece of this.
Yeah.
So I really do not believe it. And I think there's still, sadly, and you articulate it much better than me, this view that there's a persona of entrepreneurship that's not reachable by a large demographic. And I think that's, for me, slightly problematic.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And yeah, and I'd like to quickly just explore what you said. There are certain skills, regardless of your background, that you need to master as an entrepreneur. Can you give us, some high level examples of the skills that you think need to be mastered to become a successful entrepreneur? I think that's a good way.
So when I was saying skills, I was thinking of two angles. One is the personal side. One is the personal side, the kind of resilience, that how to capture your own learning and how to work out what that means yourself. And there are skills to do that. Some people are better at it than others, but there are ways of doing that. Then the other is just the basics of maths, numbers, business cases, things like that. I've used horrible terminology there, but finance, sort of what the expectations are from a bank, from a manager who wants a business case. They're all scary terms, but the reality of it is they're not. When you start to dig gently into them, you can make quite big advances with very limited experience of just how to sort of qualify those kind of things.
Okay, so to break that down, if I understand correctly, it's the technical skills on the one hand, and then there's the personality skills such as resilience, mental toughness, etc., that kind of gets you through the tough times, and getting those both right and continue developing those really help you.
But for me, it's not going to do an MBA. It's the small experiences and the small development will help you learn. You're an experienced accountant. You don't want them to be at that level, but you want to be able to them to at some point have a conversation with you and be able to evolve so that there's a common narrative between you that can push stuff forward, if you see what I mean.
So technical doesn't necessarily mean university degree. It's just learning what's relevant to help you in your business
at that point in time, right? And you don't need to write a business case to start with. You really don't, but you will at some point probably. But go on that experience, go on that journey to find out what that looks like for you in your sort of business, in your entrepreneurial world.
That's good stuff. Mike, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I just want to ask you, what are the key points you'd like us to take away from today's discussion?
I'm probably going to repeat myself, but I was thinking this is the one question I thought about last night. For me, and I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat myself. I think it's all about the people that you're working with and the team that you have around you, and your own personal experience and journey that you want to go on. And I think going with that approach, then the ideas, the market, the business, the politics, whatever it is that's around that, you will learn and you will work your own or together to kind of work out what that looks like. And you will find that experience so much more richer. And I think more amazing things will happen as well.
Thank you. And that's a great way to round things off. So everyone, thank you very much for listening or watching today. And a big thank you, Mike. I really enjoyed that discussion. There was a lot of good stuff to unpack there. Thank you. Strive and Thrive is a regular series of discussions for entrepreneurs and business leaders. And we have a great pipeline of interesting people to share their insights and experiences with you. Mike and I are going to be enjoying an Easter break, not together, but with our respective families, and so our next session is going to be in late April on the 23rd, where we will be having a really good conversation with the fabulous Kate Mercer. We'll share more details on social media soon. To remind you all, we're now on YouTube and have a podcast on Spotify, so please do look us up. A really big thank you also to the rest of the Strive and Thrive team. And hopefully see you next time. Thank you for listening to Strive and Thrive.